Before we get into today's show, we have a word from one of our sponsors that I'm really excited about. I love the saying, necessity is the mother of invention. And let me tell you, most assigning platforms out there for officials are brutal. Well, two young men recently out of college decided there had to be a better way to manage officials and get assigned. And they founded a company called Refer Sports. It simply makes referee management and assigning easy. It's native on a mobile app, so you can manage your games whether you're in the office on a desktop or on the go. It is now the world's fastest growing assigning solution, and it's 100% free for assigners. It's a no-brainer to make the switch. It makes assigners easier to work with. I've got a few assigners in my world that are brutal just because their systems are so bad and antiquated. It provides a dedicated integration specialist, so when you make a switch over to Refer, it ensures a seamless transition for you and the organization and the officials that you work with. And they support over 25 sports. So if you're assigning for soccer, you're assigning for softball, you're assigning for lacrosse, you can use one platform for everything. Simply put, man, if you want to level up your assigning game and be an easier assigner to work with for the referees and officials that are in your universe, use a tool that makes everyone's life better. Refer Sports. It's spelled R-E-F-R Sports. Check it out online or in the App Store.
Welcome to the Refs Need Love To podcast, a show that gives you a real, raw, and behind-the-scenes view of one of the hardest jobs on the pitch, the referee. I'm your host, David Gerson, a grassroots referee and certified mentor with over 10 years of experience and over 1,200 matches under my belt. You can find me at refsneedlove2.com, on Instagram, TikTok, and now on YouTube. Today, we're going to be interviewing Bryan McDermott, a gentleman who is part of the foundation of Georgia soccer. He's been volunteering, working, and actively participating in our local soccer community for over 40 years as a coach, a referee, a mentor, an assigner, and on our state board of directors. He's been a ref, again, I'm going to say that for over 40 years. He did his first referee class in Jamaica in 1982. I was 7 at the time. He's a solid ref as he was selected to regionals twice, and even as recently as last year, we did an MLS Next game together. He's coached or assisted at all national level. His current team is a U16 local team here called Cool Runnings. He's been president of one of our locals, a recreational club soccer, for numerous years. He was vice president for 10 years before he was president. He's been chairman of the Georgia Youth Ethics and Grievance Committee, spent 5 years as a youth discipline chairman, and is currently our state director of assignment. In 2019, he was recognized as U.S. Soccer South Regional Volunteer of the Year. He's a phenomenal sports photographer too, covering many of our local high-profile matches. And that wasn't even his full-time job. He had another job on top of that. So I want to give a hearty welcome, a warm welcome to the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Bryan McDermott. Welcome to the show,
Quite
sir.
an introduction.
You've done it. It's not like I'm making it up. Those are actually accomplishments. It's funny. You're not a boastful person. You're not someone who walked around talking about all of these things that you've done for us in Georgia soccer, all the roles that you have. But my gosh, you
Been
have
around
done
a lot.
quite a lot.
Some of it is, I think I have a problem with certain people telling them no.
Well, you're very generous of your time. That is for sure. The first thing that I'd love to ask you is, again, you were a referee for over 40 years. You've been in it much longer than most people do. The average tenure for a referee in the United States is less than 4 years. 80% drop out in 4 years or less. You've been doing it for 40 years. What has kept you in the game as a referee?
For the most part, I have fun. Yes, you get crazy people. Yes, they can be annoying sometimes. But overall, I had fun. Meet a lot of people. Actually get paid for it too. I'll tell you a little secret. That's when you see me out there doing a club game, it's to help out. It's to have fun. It's whatever. You see me doing a high school game, it's for the money. Tell you that straight up.
So funny. That really does make me chuckle because I find I have a lot of fun at high school games, but I just the age group in particular. Let's talk assigning. This is definitely, I think this is like the dark arts of soccer. People, again, I'm a referee, Bryan, for 10 years. I have no idea how someone becomes an assigner. I have really very little understanding of the relationship between assigner and club. First off, let's start at the state level. You are the Georgia State Assigning Coordinator. What in the world does that entail? What is that?
It means I get a vote on the state referee committee. It means I have to coordinate the assigner classes. First of all, the courses are not open. To be an assigner, you first have to have a club sponsor you. We want to hear from the club that, yes, this person is going to be our next assigner. Once we hear that, then we let you into the class. You do the class, you do all the online stuff, and then you have, I don't know what exactly it says the Zoom is supposed to be, but we do a Zoom that lasts for about an hour. And then...
So what exactly is in the class? What do you need to know to become an assigner?
The classic, how to rank your referees and all that stuff. Knowing the rules, because in the referee class, what they always tell you, ask your assigner. So your assigner is supposed to know these things, which is annoying sometimes. Just like when you have five different levels of competition you're assigning, and each one has different rules. So that's the start. Oh, yes.
It's annoying for the referees as well, Bryan. Let's just remember that. It's annoying for you, but it's annoying for me. Okay, so so now you take a class, you get sponsored by a club, you take a class, you're now a certified assigner through U.S. Soccer. And then what? And so does a club start saying, okay, this is our assigner now. Everyone's going to work through Bryan to be assigned for our games. How does an assigner get started? How do you develop your network of referees that you're assigning? What does it look like on a daily, weekly, monthly basis for you?
The thing is, most clubs, let's take a fictitious club that's just starting. So we're going to have a club. We need to have an assigner. So we tell Georgia Soccer, we have this numbskull who thinks he wants to assign for us. So we're going to sponsor him. He gets a job. Okay. So he's going to start assigning. Well, who are our referees? And so either if you're starting out from scratch, you've got to set up a referee class and now bring referees in. If you're taking over from somebody, then you probably inherit their database, inherit the referees they've been working with, and start reaching out to whoever you can. That's kind of the thing. I have a database of, when I send out my referee emails, it goes out to about 150, 170 maybe referees.
And how many games are you assigning for on a weekly basis for that 170 refs?
Like in the spring, we're doing 30 to 40 games a week. In the fall, I'm doing 50 to 60 because you get all the teams that are playing in the fall.
Club Fayette County is not a massive club compared to the Southern Soccer Academies, the GSAs. So you're not talking about a massive one, but it could be 30, 40 games a week. And some of these larger clubs, I'm assuming they're assigning 100, 300 games every single week. Yeah, it's wild. Okay, so let's talk about, and this is a real point of pain of mine, Bryan. And I want to know, okay, can you tell everyone what referee system do you use for assigning? And then I want to also understand, why is it such the Wild West out there with assigning systems? Why do I work for 5 different assigners who have 5 different assigning systems, Bryan? So it's a 2-part question. First off, what system do you use?
Long before there was ever an assigning system, a friend of mine, Steve Weeman, introduced me to a piece of software called FileMaker Pro, which started off as a FileMaker, which started off as a flat file database management system. I have my own system that I have developed over the years. It sends out emails for me. Yeah, it's a little bit of a bother that I have to look at the name and then stick them here. At one time, every referee had a number, and I had to put the referee's number in a certain slot to assign them. Now I just do it by name. There have been times it's like I get up one morning and look at this thing, and just before the season's ready to start, and I go, I'm tired of looking at this. And I wipe the whole thing, or I push the whole thing aside, start fresh, and totally redesign my system. Because there are features which I had, which I no longer use. So I just get rid of all of that. So yeah, I have my own thing. So I started that before, I started doing my own thing before game officials.
So we're talking 20 years.
Yes.
You've been doing
game
your
officials,
own
which was actually started here in Georgia. The referee who started it used to live in Griffin. He started it, and I think Mike Wright helped with it, and became the thing. And then the guy who started it sold it to a company, and then it got sold to another company. And then this other company decided to go in a different direction. And so last year, I think, or a year before, they shut it down. At this point, I would say in Georgia, 90% of the referees were using game officials. And all of a sudden it went away. And there just was never it was last year. There was never this is what we all need to go to. Because some people like features on this one. Some people, this one's good, but I don't like the price point. And so everybody started doing their own thing. And so now it's the Wild West.
So is this, I'm genuinely curious. I'm assuming there's a U.S. soccer director of assigning. Obviously, you're part of the state referee committee on assigning. I can tell you as a referee, it's brutal. It's really frustrating to have to work in 5 different systems that some are web-based, some are app-based, some, and Bryan,
some
I'm not
are just
throwing any
mails.
shade. Some there is no web or app. It's just email. It's just an email. Sometimes there's, and you and I both know there are a couple of signers here in Georgia where it's literally just a phone call. Hey, can you do this? And so it's hard to figure out, where am I supposed to be? When am I supposed to be there? What are the rules of competition? What are the sub rules? What's the documentation procedure? Do I have cards? Do I not have cards? Just all those type of things have gotten so complex. Is there any effort afoot, either on a state level or national basis, to try and bring us back to some level of standardization?
I don't think that's what you wanted to hear, but not that I know of.
Yeah, that's the reality. It is what it is. Okay, so let's move forward on this a little bit. I don't want to belabor the point. I will just tell you, Bryan, it brings me a lot of pain. And I bet a lot of, let me tell you, man, my fellow officials, it's annoying. I think potentially just in this 6 months, from August through December, I think there are potentially 9 or 10 different referee assigning systems that I will potentially be assigned through. And it's out of control. It really there's got to be a better way. All right. So I want to talk about a couple things real quick, just about assigning, and we're going to bring this to a close soon. Okay. Assigners. How do you guys get paid? And is there a standard fee that assigners get paid across
every
the
club
state?
is
Or
different.
is every club different?
I'll say one of the things that they stress I know in the research talking about tournaments, is you go in there and you negotiate what they'll pay. And I remember when I get paid with Fayette County Youth Soccer, and somebody else at that point was like, "Are you kidding me? No way, man." So they're like, "No, when I first started, you were paid X amount of money per game." And I'm like, that's too hard to keep track of.
Right.
It's much easier for me to say, this is how much we've paid referees, pay me a percentage. And most clubs do that. They pay a percentage. And it's usually 20 to 25% of what the referees make.
Yeah. So this is, I got to tell you, this is news to me. And I'm not saying news like today, but news in the past 2 months. I always thought that assigners got paid a fee. So if it's a game, you get paid $10 or $20. But just like you said, my world was like, what? That assigners can get paid, depending on the club or tournament, 20, even 25 of the total game fees for a match. So if there's a game where, say, the center is getting $75 and the ARs are getting 50-50, we're talking $175. And so the game fee, if we're talking 20% of that, if that's $175 total, we're talking $35. For that one game, if I did my math, I believe I did, it's $35 for that one game. So again, when you have these clubs that have hundreds of games going a weekend, and you may have, maybe there's one assigner for academy and one for recreation, but if they're doing 100 games, we're talking about a lot of money. And I had no idea. I didn't know it was
an assigner. He still assigns, but who I would refer to as assigner for hire. And he assigned for 6, 7, 8 different leagues or clubs. And let's just say what he was pulling in a year from assigning alone was a nice sum. But yet.
Yeah. Let me tell you, this whole world of assigning, I really did not know existed. I had no idea it was like that. And I have to tell you, I don't want to be an assigner. I swear, especially around these tournaments, like when you see these emails coming from assigners at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., the schedule's changed. Please help. I need you. Dude, even without the tournaments, Bryan, I've got to tell you, I mean, I know you only got 30, 40 games, but I swear, every single week, I need to start saving these emails. And I'm sure every ref gets this too. It's like, who's available? I need you to know. Like, it's like nonstop every single week, people looking for referees to cover matches. I do want to say this,
I'm
though.
on
Go ahead, please.
4 or 5 different assigners lists, and there are a couple of assigners on my list. So we know when we're begging for games, and I'll see it as, oops, he's having trouble this week. On the other hand, there are times, like, especially preseason, I have a preseason tournament, and I've gone to other assigners and says, hey, could you send this out to your guys? And they'll send it out, and we'll get a few people in. So, yeah, there is some competition, but I think there's more working together than there is at loggerheads with each other.
I do have one question. I assume I know the answer. That's why I'm going to ask. I want to check myself on this. Okay. It seems, this is my own personal opinion, but it seems like these tournaments that pop up, these preseason tournaments, these end of season tournaments, whatnot, it seems like they schedule games without any, let me restate this more time. It seems like that these tournaments that are at the beginning of the season and the end of the season are scheduled without any idea how in the world they're going to get referees to cover all of the games they bring in. It seems like they're just trying to bring in as many clubs as possible to generate as much revenue as possible without any thought of what other tournaments are going on at the same time, how big of a pool of referees do you have, and how the hell are you going to cover those games? Because you see it every time there's these tournaments, you got like numerous games that are happening with one ref, but a U17 match on a full field. Dude, you don't have enough refs to schedule that many games, man.
You hit the nail right on the head. Who does the tournaments? The club, the coaching staff, the administrators who want money. Don't fool yourself. Tournaments are fundraisers. So they're getting as many teams in as they can, and referees to cover it all. That's the referee assigner's problem. That's not my problem. And then it's so out of whack with the available referees. It just does not then
seem
they give you the schedule.
Reasonable at all. Crazy.
So I've been lining up these referees. They give me the schedule. Boom, boom. Okay, I'm pretty much there. And then 3 days before the tournament, they turn around and say, oh, we have changes. And now I have a time slot where I have 6 referees. Their games just went away. Their games moved to another time slot, but they're already busy doing something else at that time. But I will say it's interesting. The tournaments I deal with, they've actually started looking not just at the teams and game situation, but they're looking at the referee situation. They're looking at how much does it cost us to bring in 30 more teams, as opposed to now we have to find another complex with X number of more fields, which we're renting, so we got to pay that. Now we got to have to pay more in travel fees for referees to go to that place because it's out of the way. And they're starting to say, we might make more money by scaling things back a little.
I got to tell you want to see angry parents and frustrated parents come to these tournaments, come to these showcases, because I tell you, that's where all the frustration is. These people they're tired, they're frustrated, they drove 10 hours to get here, and then they've got what they think is a competitive team playing on a pitch with a referee who's done 5 games already that day, is completely not prepared to do that level of competition. They're missing an AR, so they're not getting the offside calls, and everyone is angry. And it is a fundamental, again, result of overscheduling matches.
You don't have the referees.
When you don't have enough officials to be able to cover that many matches.
The other thing that drives me crazy with tournaments
is a fact.
I've got to use people other than my own. And sometimes you don't know this person.
Yeah.
And so he says, it's a long time ago. oh, I could handle an under 19, no problem. And he gets in there the first game and he is like, oh my God. He's accustomed to under 19 rec level where he's from. And now here we have ECNL level teams, and he just was not prepared for that.
It's a different world. It's a different world. Yeah, I honestly, again, I'm just stating for the record, you people, do not want to be an assigner. I'm looking forward at this point in my life. Seriously, I have no desire, because I would feel personally responsible. That's the problem. Like, I would feel so responsible for what's happening on those fields if I said, yeah, no, I've got this covered. We've got people there. And then either they don't show or they're not professional. That's actually, okay, let's jump into that. So you're an assigner. What are your referee pet peeves? When you show up to the field and you see someone out there working for you, or Bryan, I know you're a coach, you go to fields all the time, you referees, maybe you have an assign, or you're a referee and you show up when you have other referees out there. What are your referee pet peeves?
Not properly dressed and equipped, because that tells me you don't care. And number two, not showing up on time. Most anything else I can handle, but those two things. I had a kid do a game in Crocs, and I show up after the game and he's wearing the Crocs. He didn't have his badge on. I said, where's your badge? He said, game's over. I took my badge off. I have it. It's here. Oh, okay. And I look down and I go, don't tell me you refereed in those. And he just gets this sheepish look. And there were a couple other refs there, and I was like, they took a vote. And let's say the vote was tied, because I was like, we're going to vote to see whether or not to fine him $10 for a game that pays what. And then that night, I get an email from another ref who was watching games, saw him, took a picture, and circled his Crocs. I said, yeah, I know. I told him if it ever happens again, I'm going to fine him for every game.
Yeah, I tell you, I've done some videos, Bryan, where I really talk about uniform and how critical it is to look right. And people are like, oh, you're being overcritical. At least they show up. I'm like, okay, like showing up. Okay, maybe that's like the basic level of expectation. They show up. You get fired if you don't show up. But you have to show up looking like you're ready to do the job. And in the uniform that's been assigned to you as well.
They didn't have a full crew. And the rules stated, this is Georgia soccer game. The rules stated if we didn't have a full crew, we didn't have to play the game. And the first guy I saw was an AR. And I know him and didn't hold him in a high opinion. The guy who was doing the middle shows up, socks down, shirt out of his shorts, and walks over to check the players in. And I turned to my assistant coach and said, we're not playing this game. I was like, we are not playing this game.
Because you know how it's going to go. If you see that, you know immediately how it's going to go. I have to tell you, so Bryan, I get sent videos like all the time. I get 10 videos a day from parents asking me to make a call on a play. And there was one where it was going to be, they said, oh, can you believe this person called them? And I opened the video and immediately I saw someone wearing perfect uniform, like official sports, logo on the side, official sports shorts, official sports socks, had both watches on, had wristband on. I could tell they were fit. I was like, oh, I guarantee this call is going to be right. So what do you know? It was close, but you could tell this girl was on side. Like, it's just, I know, and that if you see someone in the proper uniform, that there's a really good chance that they're going to call a good game. But I think even for a parent or coach or player on the sideline, maybe they don't know to look for what you and I know to look for, but subconsciously they know. And and it goes to credibility and match control. It's a big deal.
So you go out there looking like you know what you're doing. And even if you don't know what you're doing, you'll get the benefit of the doubt for your first mistake. And it'll go downhill after that. But at least we have a little time.
I get it. Cool. All right. I got one more question for you. How do referees move up and get better paying, higher quality games from an assigner?
They've got to see you or get recommendations from people they trust. That's the basic thing. And I will admit that sometimes If early in your career you're doing dumb stuff, that assigner will, oh, he does dumb stuff, I'm not going to give him anything better. And you might need to move to another assigner who gives him a break, and then you get over that. Then maybe you'll come back and say, hey, would you come look at me? And well, of course, it's hard for me sometimes if someone says, will you come look at me because I'm coaching and doing this, that, and the next thing. But if I can, I'll go look at them. And actually, I like mentoring.
I got to tell you, so as a mentor and just now a referee with gray hair who's been doing it for a long time, I have a number of assigners who will assign me a game. They'll give me an AR and they'll give me a center. But on the AR, they'll say, hey, I'm pairing you up with this guy in the center or girl. Can you give me your feedback? Let me know because they've asked to move up. And so they'll sometimes, I think it's something where you can get paired up with a senior ref or someone who can be your eyes and ears as the assigner to be able to give you some feedback if you as the assigner can't be there. And I think that's just a good advice in general is sometimes getting assigned with a more senior ref or someone who could be a mentor for you to give you pointers, but also could make recommendations on your behalf.
I'll do that too. And I've had, hey, this guy did a great job. I get it from coaches sometimes. This guy was great. Most of the times I will say that if they said, this guy was terrible, it's like, that's actually, yeah, I know. What I expected, but
yeah, I will never outright dog someone unless it's like awful. I think there's literally maybe 2 referees in 10 years where I actually sent a note to the assigner after the match. I was like, yo, this one.
I don't know if it is true, but the rumor is that a former high school assigner was once quoted as having said, you just have to hold your nose and assign them anyway.
We will not attribute that to any one person, but in high school and like those JV games and stuff, again, we talk about an outsized number of games for the amount of referees. In high school, Bryan, I know you know this, we have 6,800 games in a 8-week season with only 330 certified refs, whereas only 275 of them are fit at any given period of time. And they all have full-time jobs, or many do, and can't work more than 1 or 2 games a week or 1 or 2 nights a week. Yes, you're getting whoever is available on that day. And that is just a fact of the matter. If we're going to play, you may just be getting whoever literally has a pulse and has a certification.
The best games will get the best refs, and after that.
That's cool. Yes, man. I know it's a comeback that I've used jokingly sometimes when someone it was not a great game ref, either. Good games get good refs. It's right. That's really fun. You've also been on the club side. So you've been a club president. You were a club vice president for a decade before that. And can you tell us a little bit about the club? And then also, how do you try and set the culture for the club so that it's fun for everyone out there, as you say?
I don't know. I'm president of a rec league. And it's more of the coordinating stuff. We have a recreation coordinator who does most of the dirty work. I'm more setting the policy, or she'll say, do you think we should do this? Or we need to do this, or whatever. I wouldn't say I set the culture at all. The culture is more set by the coaches, the players, the parents.
And do you have to specifically... So with the coaches, are you driving certain behaviors, or are you trying to, in the hiring of your coaches, specifically looking for certain qualities that are going to create the club that you guys want to see?
I'm also on the of AFC Lightning. There, we're looking for something particular in coaches. If you don't find it, no, we don't want to hire you. On a recreation level, we're begging people to coach. We'll train you. We'll do whatever you need. We've had a couple of occasions where we've had high school kids who will come and help the coach, who've basically run the sessions and do stuff for them because they're the adults. They know how to organize, but they don't know soccer. So basically the qualities we're looking for is somebody who wants to be there. Number one, somebody who's not going to be crazy. We've had some coaches who are successful, but their methods to be successful doesn't make it fun. And you start, we need them out of here. Yes.
I mean, you're bringing up a really interesting point when as you're mentioning. So on the recreational side, for those who don't know, AFC Lightning is a local a very competitive club here in the south side of Atlanta. They have teams from all levels, from recreational youth all the way up to MLS Next and Girls Academy on the girls side. So very competitive club. But you talk about, again, like Fayette County Youth Association, this recreational club that you're on the board of and have led for a long time. The challenge of, you beggars can't be choosers when you're finding coaches for that. You're looking just for someone who wants to be there and wants to participate as a coach. You're not going to necessarily have someone who's had significant training, who's gotten licenses, who really understands how to deal with referees or other coaches or the parents. It's hard to have high aspirations of, hey, we're looking for this kind of person and going to recruit the best person for the job, when at rec, it's really, hey, we'll just take you if you're willing to be here. Let's talk about this from a referee perspective. Okay, so recreational soccer, okay, whether it's U8, U10, U12, 14, believe it or not, and I know you're going to believe this, obviously you've been on the disciplinary committee, but they can sometimes be really intense, or you can have parents and coaches who get really loud and really intense, even at recreational soccer, who may not have a lot of knowledge of the game or the laws of the game. What advice would you have for referees trying to manage the coaches and players and parents in those recreational settings where you may not have people who have a lot of training or a lot of experience in the game?
I'll tell you, the biggest problem starts at the younger ages, and some of that is the smaller field. Every parent, grandparents, siblings, everybody's there, and it's really tight, and they start to go crazy. And it's try and tune out as much as you can, but deal with the coaches. Coach, this can't happen. Coach, that can't happen. Personally, I ended up having to do an under-8 girls game on Sunday, I think it was, or Saturday. And at one point in the game, I was like, man, I've been to professional games that aren't this loud. But again, they were being loud, but they weren't being abusive, because I'm listening for that. And that's one of the problems when you have the younger kids doing those games. They'll start jumping on this young kid, and it's like that just, we don't take that lightly. We have not had any problem. We haven't had any problems yet this season.
Yeah.
But in the past, we've had to have people just sitting on the sidelines with the parents, just stop.
Yeah. Like a referee whisperer who can help them. I think it's so important. It's interesting. You described, and I call this atmosphere, okay, that there's going to be atmosphere at matches. And it, as you said, smaller fields, smaller kids, it could actually be even louder and even crazier than what you would find at a U18 MLS Next Girls Academy ECNL match, that there could be so much atmosphere on every single kick, every single bump, every single goal, every single trip that might happen out there, that it really can be loud and overwhelming and very intimidating to young referees who are starting out. Bryan, I know you bring in young referees. You have a recreational clubs. You're assigning young referees. How do you help them get through those first couple of years of working those U8, U10 matches where there's all of this atmosphere on these small fields? How do you get them over the hump and get them through those games so they can stick with it long enough to develop into those refs that we want to see at President's Cup and regionals and really continue for 4 or 5 years or more?
We started a junior referee program, and much to the annoyance of some of these refs, I'm not going to put you in that under-8 middle until you're showing me you have your act together. You're showing up, you're looking neat, your signaling is sharp, you look like you know what you're doing. And then I'm going to ask you, do you want to try an under-8? And that first under-8, you're going to have an adult there with you. And if there are any problems, there'll be someone there immediately to step in and help if necessary. And you're doing a good job with the under-8. Do you want to try an under-12? The thing is not, I can tell you, I had one kid who's, I want to do an under-8. Now, the week before, I had a report from a 14-year-old referee in the middle who said at halftime, I had to teach my AR what offside is because she wasn't calling it. And this is the girl who wants to do under-8s. And I'm like, And he said who it was, and I said, yeah, she's a really nice kid, but not much of a referee. It's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. That's for sure. So what does your path look like? It's very interesting because, again, I've not run a juniors program, obviously, but you have. And so is your path for junior referees, you have them act as assistant referees on U12, or
You
do
have
we have
offside at
offside
U10,
at U10, offside at U10 matches?
we
Okay.
made a conscious decision some time ago that we're not using ARs on. We're using the build out line.
Okay. And I personally don't think you need it. Yeah. There's such a limited area for offside anyway. Yeah. Okay. So so in your league, your recreational league, you're not doing ARs on U10. So you start your junior referees at U12 AR positions
see what they're
for
doing.
a while and
Yes.
see that they're getting good there. And then
And
you
once
move. I wish there were more junior programs. I honestly do. It's interesting. There are a few clubs in Atlanta who do develop referees and have made that conscious decision. I know Inter Atlanta in particular has been very deliberate in their development of referees, but I wish more clubs would take it seriously and understand the value
I
of
don't know
doing
why
that.
my
investment.
light just went out.
Not everyone does. So you've been in the game for over 40 years, Bryan. Have you seen any changes in either coach and parent behavior over that time or referee behavior in that time? Or is it just, it's a constant that's
changed.
always been going on out there?
Coach and parents, and let's start with the select teams and paid coaches. As the coaches are getting paid more, the expectations are greater. They push the kids more. So a lot of them get a little crazy. Recreation, we've been finding that the laid back parents, we don't have as many of them as we used to. I don't know why, but they're just going crazy too. And it's interesting. We'll get parents who have been with the recreation teams at, say, U8, maybe U10, and now their kid's been kicking butt here, so they go and join a Lightning team. And the first thing the Lightning coach says is, we don't want to hear you over there. And they're like, what do you mean? I got a chair. No, you don't. And those programs where the coaches and the club keeps a tamper on them makes referees' lives a lot easier. Referees, I remember way back, kids who are now in their 40s. And when they were a referee, 14 years old, I could put them on a 13-year-old 11v11 game and not worry. You just don't see that many of those kids anymore.
What are the characteristics that you think are missing in those 14, 15-year-old kids now that maybe we had instilled in them 20 years ago? What's missing that doesn't enable them to be able to do a center on like a U12 or U13 game?
I just think kids take a little longer to mature now because, those kids had maturity, concentration. I've seen one kid he's 13, so on a 2011 MLS Next team. And I've watched him do under 12 middles and stuff like that. He's good. He gets it. You do have a few who get it, but I just feel that we used to have a lot more that died.
I think, and my own personal theory on it is, and again, I don't want people to struggle people going through struggle and adversity as a youth one or two things can happen. Either it can really affect them negatively in life, or it can make them more resilient and independent and have that inner strength that you need because they've been tested. And I think there is a little bit these days where parents may be so protective of their child's emotional state at all time and don't want them to be in situations where they struggle, where it's really hard to be in those intense environments on a soccer pitch if you've not had any struggle thus far in your life. It really is a challenge. So I don't know, that's my own personal feelings on that. All right. So I want to ask you some questions about your role on the disciplinary committee, ethics committee for the state of Georgia. All right. Just an open question at this time. Let's withhold all names, club affiliations, everything. Let's protect the innocent and guilty. But what are some of the craziest things that you've seen done by parents or coaches or players in your years on these committees?
I can't even think of craziest. I think one of my most memorable hearings was kid comes in, a 12-year-old kid comes in with his mother. We're sitting at this long table. I'm at one end, he's at the other end, his mother's beside him. And then you have all these adults down the side, the referees are over here. And we start off, the referee says, this is what the kid did. And so I said, okay, we've heard from the referee. Now, what do you have to say? And he said something, and I couldn't hear it. I said, what's that? And he goes, it's true. Everything the referee said is true. And there's just this dead silence in the room.
Wow.
And his mother turns to him and says, and I apologize for my behavior. That was one of the great.
I have another question for you about discipline. So in all of my years, I've probably maybe given out 20 or 30 red cards in 10 years. It's not that many. I've had a few times where I've dismissed a parent and I've written a report about it, or I've had to dismiss a coach. Thankfully, only a few times in my entire career. But after I submitted that report to my assigner, whether it was you or it was Matt or someone else, I've never heard anything after that. And so I'm just curious, like what is supposed to happen or what does happen when I dismiss or a referee dismisses a coach or a parent and they write a report?
Okay, I can only speak
what
to
takes
what
place
takes
after
place.
that?
Basically, referee abuse, which is for it to be referee abuse, there has to be an implication of a threat or something like that. It's not ref, you're ugly. Ref, you're ugly. You don't know what you're doing. That's basically a 1-game suspension. Refs, I will meet you in the parking lot. That's a threat. And U.S. Soccer is, if that's what he said, we have to have a hearing on that. And once we establish, yes, that's what he said, the minimum is a 3-game suspension. Referee assault, where you actually make physical contact in a manner kind of thing. Not a good job, ref. If you push the ref or something like that, referee assault, they have a thing which is minor touching, which is a 6-month suspension. Or basically full referee assault is a 1-year suspension.
Wow.
And referee assault done by an adult towards a minor is a minimum 3-year suspension.
Yeah, as it should be. I would also, I don't mean to laugh, to me, that's the most outrageous possible thing I could imagine. It's so beyond my imagination that someone could be so angry in a match to assault a minor. I have a hard time even wrapping my head around that. Bryan, thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate your time. It's been a wonderful conversation. And let me just also again say thank you for all that you've done for Georgia soccer and our community. For those who don't know, our community is now going to be the home Fayette County of U.S. Soccer. And Bryan and I were talking before the podcast that actually the U17 girls national team was here tonight in town playing at our local fields and will be investing in our community. And Bryan has been a member of our community, supporting our community, developing our soccer community for over 40 years. So he's part of that reason that we've been able to attract U.S. Soccer here.
It's
so
been fun.
Bryan, thank you so much for your time, sir. I hope you enjoyed today's pod. Bryan is so much more than a coach, a referee, mentor, a signer. He's the foundation of a vibrant soccer community. We are so thankful to have him. It's because of great people like him that we've been able to bring U.S. Soccer here, and we continue to have a really vibrant soccer culture in our town and our state and our country. So please, thank you so much to Bryan. And again, if you don't mind, please support the Refs Need Love 2 store online. I just added a new whistle to the catalog. It's so loud, so crisp. Pick it up. Pick up some merch if you haven't. A shirt, anything is great. Everything gets poured back into the channel. And also, if you don't mind, take a moment and after this pod and rate us on Spotify or the Apple Podcast Store. Those ratings are massive. And if we want this message to get as far and as wide as possible, those ratings play a big part. Thank you so much for listening today. I wish you all the best, and I hope your next match is red card free.